Uh, so today's topic is on how to choose a flying school. You're probably close to spending say around 40 lakhs on your CPL or your commercial pilot license, and most people might just make that decision on the basis of the location of the flying school or whichever is the cheapest one. But there's just so much more to consider, and I don't think that just basing your decision on the cost or the location should be your main criteria. I'm Captain Ankita. I am a captain on the Airbus A320 and on the Airbus A321. I've recently crossed 5,000 flying hours. And let me just help you out a little bit in evaluating which flying school might be the best for you. So, before we get started on the flying school, you need to understand that choosing a flying school is a very crucial decision. It's very important, right? Because that's like the very first step that you're taking in your flying career. And the flying school will set the foundation for everything else that will come later on. And the CPL or the commercial pilot license that you get towards the end of your flying school is not just the flying part, right? Like there are two aspects to getting a CPL or the commercial pilot license. One is the flying aspect of it, so you have to fly a minimum of 200 hours. That will include both flying solo, doing cross country flying, that means like longer distances flying, flying by day, flying by night, flying with an instructor, doing different maneuvers, doing circuits, landings, etc., right? So there's a lot of things that you have to cover in those 200 hours. The CPL, the other aspect of it is also your theoretical examinations. So you have to clear your meteorology, regulations, navigation, and radio telephony, technical. So all these examinations you also need to take and clear. So today let's talk about how do you go about evaluating a flying school. So the couple of points I thought I should share. Number one is I also want to say two other things. Number one is that when you're getting into the aviation field, right? If you uh, when you're just stepping in, you might be very excited to start your flying career, and when you're really excited for something, you might just not want to spend any time doing much research. You just want to get started as soon as possible. Get into that cockpit, take that take that first flight. But I would urge you to do give choosing the right flying school. Do give this due diligence, because this is important. This is the very basis of your foundation. This is the basis of the rest of the foundation of your flying career. Okay, so number one point that you need to consider is the student aircraft ratio. Now, there can be two kinds of flying schools. One can be, let's say, if you have to do a broad categorization, one would be within India, one would be outside India, right? So you do your flying in India, second would be you do your flying abroad. The good thing about doing your flying in India would be that you'll get to meet more people there. You'll probably get to meet Indians there. 99 point. In my flying school, IGRO, we also had people from different nations and countries, but that's because IGRO back then was like the best flying school in whole of Asia. Currently, if you go to a flying school in India, you will probably 99.9% you will meet fellow Indians, and that camaraderie helps. Now, IGRO in itself, IGRO, the Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Udan Academy, the flying school I went to, their way of teaching or conducting flying was such that people became it developed camaraderie in us, because the instructors were from the ex-FOs and the seniors, and IGRO in itself is in Fursadganj, which is close to Raebareli, so we didn't have a lot of external distractions. We didn't have that much of a social life outside of our flying academy, so we only had each other, and we were also staying in the campus. But before I digress, okay, so coming back, number one, so student to aircraft ratio. So you need to see how many students there are versus how many aircrafts are there in the flying school. And if the flying school is in India, you will be in touch with other, cadets there or the other students there, and that might help in case you're going to an airline, because they will also be appearing for the same exams, and you might be able to, maybe get an idea as to what questions are being asked in those exams. And uh, just going abroad, even though the flying culture may be nicer or maybe not as nice depending upon which flying school you're going to, but most of the people there, they are not going to come back to India. So you might face difficulty in suddenly then facing the airline market all alone. You might not know people from the flying school who are facing the same airline entrance examinations. I hope I'm clear. So, okay, one is the student aircraft ratio. For the student aircraft ratio, if there are a lot of students and less aircrafts, then it would take longer for you to finish your flying training. Second would be the age of the fleet. Now, the age of the fleet is not as important as the maintenance. How do you decide if the aircraft maintenance is being done properly? And that has a direct impact on the safety of the aircraft. I think of late, a lot of air crashes are happening, and you want to make sure that you're not concerned about your safety when you go fly, because when you fly, that's such a beautiful feeling. It's like nothing comes close to taking that first flight all by yourself, to going solo all by yourself. That's just such an exhilarating feeling. So to make sure that the safety of the school and the aircrafts is proper, you'll need to make sure that the FTA rankings, or the ranking of the flight school on DGCA website is good. If you're going outside India, if you're going abroad, then make sure that the school is DGCA compliant, like people. You make sure that there are students who've passed out of that school who've now come back to India and are employed in some airline. Make sure that's the case, because there might be schools out there who are not affiliated or who are not licensed, right? Like, if you fly from them, it might not hold any value. And I don't want to scare you, but this is what people have faced this, so I'm just letting you know, so that you can avoid all these mistakes. The third thing to consider is the flight safety record. Again, it can be verified by the FTA rankings. Also, when you go to any flying school, I think one of the most important parts is not just speaking to the management, but also speaking to the students, because the students there will tell you the real picture. Management is just trying to sell you the school. So if you'll ask them something, they'll be like, oh yes, the flying school is great and blah blah blah. But if you speak to a student, they will give you the real picture. So not just speak to the students there, but also speak to the students who've passed out. Like, be very courteous, ask them if you can speak to few students, because that might help you make a decision, and I'm sure the management will comply. On this topic, I do want to talk about, so there are two kinds of people, right? I mean, so let's say you ask me about the airline I work for, okay? And I might say, oh wow, it's such a good airline, I feel so lucky to fly for them, and etc etc. I say really nice things about them. Now you speak to my colleague, and that person may be thinking about quitting the airline, and they'll tell you a different story. So do not base your judgment and your decision on the basis of passion, on the basis of how strongly someone is feeling about the flying academy or the airline. Ask them very objective questions. So you can base your decision on the basis of, say, how long does the flying school claim that your your flying training will last, and does that match with the actual output? Like, are people really taking that much amount, are that much duration to finish their flying training, or are they taking longer? So do look for information, objective information, and don't get very swayed by passion. Another thing to ask is, will they help you with clearing your ground, with clearing your theoretical examinations? Are they going to provide any help? Will they have classes? Are they going to provide study material? Because it makes a lot of difference. because it's just like a one-sided video and I can't really make out what you're thinking, but I would want to put this across right now, that people think that clearing your CPL examinations is all about just getting that license, but it's so much more than that. When you are studying for your CPL examinations, you are understanding the concepts, you're understanding the theory, and it's on the basis of that theory and concepts that you will clear your ATPL examinations. So CPL is your, ATPL is your, CPL is your commercial pilot license, ATPL is your airline transport pilot license. So ATPL is the highest license that you can get in the aviation industry, and it's a license that is mandated before you can apply to become a captain. So I do have ATPL, and it's important that you get your concepts right for CPL, because then clearing your ATPL exams will be that much more simpler, and you'll just feel more confident as a pilot. So don't just think about CPL examinations कि करना है, किसी भी तरह पास करना है, because unlike engineering or other fields, I feel like we do use those concepts more than what an engineer might use in day-to-day work. But so make sure that your flying school, ask them about the ground theory, and if they're able to provide any help there. Another thing you could ask is, are they providing any campus selection? So my flying school IGRUA provided, like earlier Air India and Indigo would come for campus selection, and there are some flying schools which don't have that tie-up. Of course, flying schools abroad don't have that tie-up, but that's okay. Other thing is, are they, what's the experience of the flying training instructors? Are they going to stay there for a long time? Like, do they have contract with the flying academy? Because if they do not have a contract with the flying academy, what happens is sometimes they just quit and join the airlines, and then you might just have to change your flying training instructor. So do feel free to ask about their experience. Don't shy away. Ask people. On the topic of asking, so if you're like me, when I was, so like if you don't have anyone in aviation, right? Like if your dad is not a pilot, or your immediate brother or your sister is not a pilot, right? So you're still getting in the aviation, and there's so much mystery regarding how do you become a pilot, and how do you do this, and how do you that. And the more you get into the field, the more you realize, okay, there's so much you don't know, like how do you convert your papers, how do you upload files in DGCA, how do you do this, that, etc, etc. So even when it comes to choosing a flying school, you might reach out to people on social media, Instagram or Facebook, and ask them directly, like, which flying school did you go to. Now I understand this is not something that you might be comfortable with. I mean, this is something that I am very uncomfortable with, reaching out to people and asking for help. But I had to remind myself that when you need help, you have to ask for it, because people are not going to realize that you need help, right? And it's a matter of your career, so you have to ask for help. And let's say out of the 20 people that you get in touch with, or that you leave a message to, saying that, hey, so and so, I'm looking for for a good flying school, and something on those lines, and could you please guide me, or could you please help me? 15 of them, 15 of them might not respond. 5 might respond, but they might just give a lukewarm response. 1 or 2 might actually be kind and might actually take out their time and tell you and help you, and that's okay. I mean, you gotta try. Other thing I would want you to consider is, do they provide accommodation? What's the maintenance culture? So the maintenance culture is basically how often are the aircrafts, how often are they maintained, how often do they undergo maintenance. And one way to look at it would be, what's their flight safety ranking. A very important point with the flying school is the weather. So you want to fly at a place where the weather is good all year round. If the weather is not good all year round, it would directly impact your flying training. If you are going abroad, make sure that they help you or that they know on how to fill your logbook. So logbook is a legal document that every pilot to carry is just a book where you log your flying hours, so you know where you've flown, what all flying hours you've done, etc. etc. Now, let's talk about the other points quickly. One point I want to say is that, okay, for example, if someone is recommending you a flying school, they might, number one, be an investor in the flying school, or they might be getting a commission for it, or they might have like they might be related to the flying school. You know how these days on social media a lot of people say, oh, I'm obsessed with this, and they're recommending something, and then you realize later on, and then they say, oh, use my coupon code. So make sure that whoever is recommending you a flying school does not have a personal vested interest, or does not gain anything by recommending you that flying school, and make sure decisions basis on that. When it comes to choosing a flying school, please talk to the students. I know it's a lot to ask. It's just very simple to you might be very tempted to make the decision very quickly, but I would urge you to involve your parents, because 40 lakhs is a big lump sum amount. To involve your parents or family, or someone whom you trust, especially your parents, or someone whom you seek your counsel from, and get them involved in the process. Talk to students who are going to this set flying school. Ask them how it is, ask them how's the environment, how are the instructors. Talk to multiple of them, right? Multiple people. Other thing that you need to talk about is the fake logging. We discussed this in an earlier video, but I will touch upon the topic here as well. So fake logging is something where you go to a flying school, and for whatever reason the flight school feels that, oh, okay, I do not trust my pilots enough, and solo flying is a mandatory part of your flying that you need to do to get your CPL. Now, solo flying, as the name suggests, is that you fly solo, all by yourself, in a small cockpit. So, right, when you're doing your flying, you'll do in a small 4-seater aircraft. Now, solo flying is something that some flying schools are not comfortable with, because they're giving you the whole responsibility of ensuring that you and the aircraft remain safe, and they might not feel comfortable with you shouldering this responsibility, or they might not have enough faith in you, or maybe their teaching is such that, and maybe because the teaching is such, and the accidents that have happened in the past have led them to do fake logging. Whatever be the reason, whatever be the excuse, some institutes also do fake logging, which is basically that you log you log that you're flying solo, whereas you actually have an instructor in the cockpit with you. Of course, there are multiple problems with this. One is that when you do fly solo, it's an exhilarating feeling. It's so beautiful. It's just like one of the best feelings. And secondly, it builds so much confidence, right? Like, how can you be a captain in the future and take responsibility for 200, 300, so many people, the lives of so many people on your teeny tiny shoulders, when your instructor has not trusted you enough to shoulder the responsibility of your own self. So so some people do that. Make sure that's not happening, and put in some efforts, take your time, do some research, do maybe a YouTube research, look up on internet. These days there's a lot more information. I did talk about the couple of flying schools that you can go to in my other videos, so do consider that. And I think, let me just go through my notes again and see if I've missed out on anything. Yes, one other cost is that make sure that you ask for a complete cost. Don't just ask for a complete cost that includes your check rides. So after you're done with your flying training, in order for you to obtain CPL or commercial pilot license, you'll also have to undergo some tests. So make sure that is included, the cost of your headsets, fuel surcharges, So like try and get the complete cost, because some people might just try and sell their flying school by giving a lower cost and not including the cost of the visa, accommodation, food, lodging, instructor, check rides, etc. etc. Uh, a good point would be to ask them how many students from their past batches, from the earlier batches, have gotten selected in the airlines, and could you, if you can speak to them. Some institutes might just outright refuse you. They might say, oh, student privacy, etc. etc. But remember, it's not just about the money, right? It's your time. So I personally have known people who've gone to, I think there were some 4 or 5 people in my flying academy grew up. So they had enrolled in some other flying school and they'd paid an upfront money, right? So they'd paid some few lakhs, and then the training just took forever. And not only were there training going really slow at snail pace, but also they were just losing time. And there came a point where they decided that okay, we'll just rather lose the money and get enrolled in a better flying school, in a more reputed flying school, than to waste our time. Other thing is so yeah, I think that's it. I think we've covered all points here. Do mention if you need any other help from my end. Also, I do want to mention that I will be making videos every week now. And if I make one video every week till December, then I will gift myself something. Okay, I really hope this video helped. I'm a little under the weather, but I wanted to make it today before the end of the month. And I hope you're doing really well. Okay, bye.